everyone, and welcome to part 3, the final video in making Susan from Narnia. This one will be all about making her shirt that is worn underneath the dress. I've also posted the progress of making this dress for close friends on Instagram, so if you'd like exclusive access to that, plus past and future projects, then please head over to my Patreon. The link will be in the description below. Let's get on with the video. Good morning everyone, and welcome to a new video. This is day 3 of making Susan. I am going to work on her shirt today. Not sure how much I'll get done today because I do have a family lunch. Right now it's 8:50 in the morning, and yeah, this is the undershirt that I'll be making. It's basically a white blouse that's a bit off the shoulder with some sort of pleating detail across here. It has quite close to the arm up here, and then it flares out into billowing puffy sleeves with a cuff at the bottom. So I've already started on this, and what I've got here is an existing dress that has an off the shoulder, it is elasticated, but off the shoulder and covering the tops of my arms. And I've used this as a rough guide, a general pattern for what I've cut out for my pieces. I've used just a nice white, lightweight cotton. So this is the main body of the top, and then here is the raglan sleeve. I think that's supposed to go this way maybe. Yeah, I think that goes this way. So that's the raglan sleeve. I've got this, which is just a long strip, which will go across the top for that pleating detail. I've got this here, which is some very wide rectangles, and those will be those puffy sleeves at the forearm. And then finally, I've got some pieces cut out for the cuff. So there was no exact way of doing this. I just laid this out on top of my fabric and did the best that I could. So hoping that this works and all things go well. Oh, and one more thing to mention, I'll be using the same trims as what I've put on the dress as the trims for her sleeves. So I'll just be doing these 2 trims, and then for this cuff, I'm thinking it's not as obvious, so I might try some embroidery on the cuffs using one of the stitches on my sewing machine. So yeah, that is the plan, and let's get started. So what I've first done is opened up one of my top sleeve patterns. This is the underarm of the raglan sleeve. That's part of the off the shoulder part. And here I've just trimmed how much trim I need to go across the sleeve. And I'm going to just simply sew this all down so it's nice and ready to go. Yeah, that's all I really need to say about that. So let's go run that under the sewing machine. All right, so I have my 2 sleeves. I stitched down the center just on each trim, and then on the edges I zigzag stitched those because I didn't want the trims to be fraying everywhere. They do fray a bit like crazy. I made sure to try and line these up as best as possible because I will be turning these like this and then sewing down here, but that will come at a later stage. But for now, I'm very happy with that. So let's move on to the next part. So for this next part, I'm going to grab my piece, which is the forearm piece. So this is the big puffed gathered sleeve, and along the width of it, so this is the part that goes down the forearm, but this is the part that needs to be gathered up. I'll be using a very long stitch length on my sewing machine, so that's 5, and on the lowest tension, I believe. And what I do is I just hold the thread as I'm sewing, and it gathers it up nicely like this. So I've already done the other sleeve. I just need to do this one here. Now what I need to do is pin the top part of the sleeve, of the forearm sleeve, to this piece here. So I'm going to pin it, marking it at the center first, and I'm just using a rough, I'm eyeballing it, like I don't measure exactly. So I'm going to arrange the gathers so that this piece extends the full length of the piece that's under it, because I want the edges to match. So just very gently pulling on those gathering stitches. All right, so that looks about right. And then I'm going to pin this all the way along. So now that's been pinned, I can bring that over to the machine and sew all of that down. I'm just making sure when I sew it that I don't sew over the trim that's already here. So I did leave a bit of a gap for this seam allowance, so I'm just going to sew as close as possible to it, but without going over the trim if I can help it. Okay, so that's been sewn, and when I turn it to the right side, hopefully I haven't caught any of the trim. It looks okay. There's just a little bit that's been caught there, but it's okay because it doesn't look very obvious. But yeah, the rest of it's peeking through fine, which gives it a nice look. So I'm going to just go ahead and do this on the other side as well. All right, so I have both sleeves done. Now I'm attaching it to the main bodice piece. I'm just using one of them, which will be the front, and then the other, which is behind it, will be the back, but I won't worry about the back for now, just the front. So all I'm doing is pinning at the raglan sleeve, like the underarm part, just at the corner here, so that will be the underarm, and sewing along here, and same on the other side. So this is the shape we have so far, and now what I need to do is add in the back panel piece. So I'll bring that to the front, and I will sew along the same seams that I did for the front piece, but to the back. So I finished sewing all of the sleeves, or both sleeves, to each of the bodice panels, so both the front and the back. And now what I need to do is I need to match up all of the seams and the trim, so the underarm seam, these two trims, that point down there, and also all along the side of the bodice. And then I can just literally sew all the way along the entire side and the sleeve of the bodice all at the same time, and then we will basically have a very giant shirt. I am thinking that this is like way too big for me, so I will need to put elastic in it to help make it fit, but I'd rather too big than too small. I will worry about adding the cuffs later. I think my priority for now is making it into an actual shirt, even if it is way too big, and then working out what the heck I'm going to do at the top. So I've sewn up all of the edges and we have this really big shirt. I zigzag stitched all of the raw edges because I don't want those fraying. And now I just trimmed the top edge to make that all even. And I am definitely going to be using some elastic to make this top edge fit my shoulders a bit better because it's way too large. So to do this, I'm going to just do a very small casing along the top, and it will just be where I fold over the raw edge and then fold it once again and make sure that that is large enough to fit my elastic. I'll just stitch along the edge there all the way around, and I'll leave a little opening somewhere so I can feed in through my elastic. I've sewn my casing for the elastic and I've left a little gap just here so I can feed it through. I've also hemmed the bottom edge just with a simple rolled hem, and it's looking pretty good so far. So I'll show you my little trick that I do to feed the elastic through. So I essentially just attach a safety pin to the end of the elastic, and then I use this safety pin to push the elastic all the way through the casing. And that's really it. Once I've fed through the elastic, all I do is take out the safety pin, and I just sew this shut. So I've sewn that with a zigzag stitch that is not going anywhere, and I can just put that back through, if that will go through. There we go. And just stretch it all out. And then I can close up that little gap in the casing. So just along there. I'm really loving how this is looking so far. I need to add that pleating that happens across the top. So that's going to be with that piece of fabric there. I think all I will really do is pleat it just once in the middle and then sew that to the top, and that should be done. And then those pieces over there will be the cuffs to finish off these edges. And then that will be it. So really close. So for this part, I'm going to sew down the length of my 2 strips of fabric. I think I'm going to go with 2 rather than 1 because I want it to be quite strong. The extra layer will just add a bit of support. So I'll sew that and then we'll turn it right side out, I think. Actually, I might just sew along the whole thing around the edges and then turn it right side out. I think that's a better approach. Okay, so I've sewn all the way around. I've just left an opening at one of the ends so I can turn it right side out. I've also clipped the corners so those will be nice and crisp. I've now given it a good iron and that's looking nice and crisp. So the reference image sort of looks like it has some sort of pleat. So I think I'm going to do the same thing. I'm thinking I might pleat it. Well, it doesn't matter which way at this point, so up or down, and see that pleat in the middle there? I'm going to press that down with the iron all the way across. This is what it looks like after it's been ironed. I'm thinking of sewing on the underside because I don't want a visible top stitch along here, but we will see how I end up doing that. I'm still not sure yet which side will be the back and which side will be attached to the front, but let's go head over to where the shirt is and have a look. So here is the shirt. It doesn't have a front or a back, they're both the same. So I'm just going to say that this is the front, and if I lay this on top, it's starting to achieve the look that I'm after, which is that off the shoulder Bardo style top. I was thinking maybe having the ends wrap around and then meet in the middle like this, but I think that looks a little bit incomplete. So let me just bring you closer. Yeah, I feel like this looks a bit incomplete, so I'm thinking it might be more like this, maybe the other way, like that. Even, and then sewing this to this top edge here. Okay, so I figured it out. I have only attached the, I don't know what to call this. I'm going to call it the pleated thing, just at various points around the neckline. So I started with the center front, and I've also decided to pleat it yet again just because it gives it this nice effect, and I think it looks better personally this way, as opposed to just leaving it straight. I've also pinned it up at the shoulders on both sides and at the back. So at the back, I've just made them meet like this, overlap a little bit. They don't match up entirely, so I might just cheat a little bit and sew that under. We will see. Honestly, it's not really that noticeable, so I might just leave it. But really all I'm going to do now is sew just at those various points where the pins are, and I'm going to sew just along here, just where the current stitching is. I'm making sure not to catch the elastic because I still want that to be functional, well, somewhat functional within the boundaries of this pleated thing. But I think that will be it. So let me go ahead and sew that down, and then I just need to do the cuffs. Shirt is looking really good. I sewed that pleat there. I sewed it from underneath so it can just lay flat over the seam, without having any visible stitching there. However, on the sides and the back, I have the visible stitching, but I don't mind because it's not at the very front. So now I need to work on the cuffs. I've got these pieces that I cut out earlier. I'll literally be taking them as is because I already measured around my hand to make sure I could get them on and off without any buttons or anything like that. So yeah, because that literally should be the size of the cuff that I want, I am just going to sew it straight across like that for both of them. So now that the cuff has been sewn, I've just finger pressed the seam allowance open, and with the sleeve, I'm going to match up those seam allowances just roughly. So about there, and pin that in place. All right, and then shove the cuff on the inside of the sleeve. And then it's just a matter of working all of these gathers using the gathering threads, which are over here, working the gathers so that they match the circumference of the cuff. So this looks pretty good so far. It just requires a bit of fiddling and maneuvering of the fabric. So this is what is worn underneath the dress. I've got a plain petticoat, which I use for literally every cosplay. It's just a drawstring tie at the back here. And for the top, it just tucks into the skirt, and the top of it doesn't really fit the dress form because it's worn off the shoulder, but it's turned more into one pleat as opposed to two pleats, which is fine. And the sleeves, which I am very happy with. They may be a tad short, but that's okay. So I'll put the dress on top of this now. So here is what it looks like with the dress on top. Very happy with how that is. I just need to hem the bottom. So I'm just going to level it with the ground because the dress form is my height. Along the back, I'm going to keep that little train, and I'm just going to trim that front edge basically because that's too long and I can't walk. Pockets look good. The back is actually, when it's closed up to the tightest, it's actually still not that tight on me. It's actually quite loose. So I think I may have just stuffed up some calculations, and somewhere in the process it went bigger than what I was intending. So that means that this drawstring that I made in the back doesn't actually function how I want. So I've just marked with 2 clips where I'm going to put a skirt hook and eye. So hook and eye there, and then that will just close the skirt in the back, and then these edges will just literally fold over onto the inside like they were never there. So that is it. I'm just going to make those adjustments tonight, and then the dress is done, and I will be going to a friend's birthday party next week and be wearing this. So I will get photos and footage of me in it when that time comes. So thanks for joining me on the journey of making this dress. I hope you enjoyed. Oh yeah, I forgot to also mention I do need to hand sew those parts because they were too thick to put under the sewing machine. Thanks for joining me on this journey of making this dress. I really hope you enjoyed following along, and I can't wait to show you what it looks like on with hair and makeup as well. Until next time, stay creative.